Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Worship Talk. And today I have with me,
Eli Navas.
and I'm James. And today we're going to be talking to you about digital mixers and how they can be beneficial versus analog mixers in a house of worship. And so, Eli, I think that you've had some kind of experience before. You've seen digital mixers, I take it?
Yes, I've seen it, all of them.
Yeah. And you've also experienced analog mixers as well, too?
Unfortunately, yes.
And so I think that, keeping that in mind, you would have sort of an understanding of what it was like before digital mixers and what it was like after. And
You're,
so,
you're implying that I'm old, right?
no, I've been implying that you're experienced with
Okay.
changes of technology because, I think that the change for you was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's a very good question that is not in the questionnaire, but yeah, more or less, yes.
And so it might have been in the last 4 or 5 years that you've experienced the differences between digital mixing and analog mixing and the benefits that I guess that it gave you within your ministry and and just I guess the nuances and differences so that you could, you know, I guess in this case be qualified as an expert uh, on digital mixing versus analog.
Technically, you're right. I didn't see it in through that point of view, but yes, technically I am.
So I guess that leads to my first question, and so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and show this up here for you. What are three differences you have experienced using a digital audio mixer versus using an analog one?
Okay, let me start answering that question with something that I don't have in my notes because you were pointing out something really interesting that I never thought about it. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been transitioning from analog to digital mixing. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind, in theory, analog and digital are the same. That's the truth. It's the same acoustic theory. It's the same connectivity and everything else. It's like the old Nokia phones that we used to use, the successful and really popular cell phones, against the new technology that we have with smartphones. It's the same thing. You have the same functionalities, but you have access and the user interface is more friendly for you. That's one of the things that you have to keep in mind. So for me, when I transitioned from analog to digital, it was just like trying to find where everything was. And the number one thing that I found, it was the obvious audio quality. The audio quality was sharp, it was surreal because I can hear finally my voice as it's supposed to be. The only problem that you have with the analog is like you have to do everything manual every single time because remember temperatures, noises, and everything in your environment will affect the audio. But with the digital, technically, you will do the settings just once, and it's minor adjustments that you have to do every time that you have an event or a service, a wedding, or whatever you use for your audio. But the audio quality is always better right out of the box. You just connect, you know where everything is connected, and boom, audio is way better because it's digital. That will be always better. And second difference that I found is especially, I'm talking about the first one, the audio quality is good in the PA, what everybody's listening in the auditorium. But the second one is the audio in your monitors. And this is also for free because it's not in my notes. Just make sure when you change to your monitors, don't patch. Okay, and let me clarify this. If you're moving to digital, don't move to digital just because everybody else is moving. Have a smart budget and move your monitors too. If you're not moving your monitors into digital, stop your project. Please do a favor to your singers, musicians, and everyone, because that is really painful to see. A new digital board, top of the line, patched together, glued together with duct tape with analog snakes. And I will tell you by experience, that's really painful. I experienced both where we changed all the stuff in the church, digital monitors, and it was just on the, I mean, it's just like that we almost discovered fire because I was so amazing and it was so easy to carry on and everything is just like plug and go. And I moved that
And sorry,
system so many times. Yes, go
I
ahead.
just have to ask you, when you discovered fire, was that because you were burning some of the old equipment?
I burned a couple of equipment before. I'm not gonna deny it, especially the speakers, because that ratio in between the speakers and the power, sometimes it's really hard to find. But yes, I blew a couple of speakers before. Okay, I'm out. Yeah, I made a mistake, but in the monitors, I blew a couple monitors because of that ratio that you have to keep in between your power amps against the speakers. Because sometimes we don't think about it, and that's the reason why I'm telling you. Please, if you're moving your system from analog, get rid of everything and move everything, monitors and the PA system to digital, because that will be beneficial for your worship team if it's a church, for your singers in your events and everything. Digital audio monitors are the best thing. And also, what I really loved, and James was telling me, just tell what was your experience. I was bragging about the ability to connect remotely with my tablet and my iPad, because I can do everything. And especially, this is my experience. Usually, and this is the best way to do it, of course, if you have your mixer beside the stage, huge mistake. It doesn't work like that. Usually the audio booth is in the back, and having the access to carry the monitors and help the people from the stage is really good, and it's really easy. Also, when I'm leading worship and everything before the service, I can mute and unmute my channels, because when you're coming, in my case, in my church, we used to sing songs at the end, and you have your audio technicians distracted, you can unmute everything. So you have those abilities that they are really good. But also, this is the main one. Usually your churches, and I'm talking about churches right now, your audio technician can walk around the whole building to see if the nursery, if the youth room, or other places that you have audio are working or not. And that gives you the freedom that you can move from left to right, front and back, just to see how is your audio. So you have that amazing freedom through the digital board and digital mixing.
And, you know, from the perspective of mixing at the church, I mean, I've done that for many years. And you know, when you're setting up, you have different people that are doing things at different times, so it requires you to have maybe certain settings, even for the same microphone, because as a certain person is going up, they're not as loud as someone else, or someone is louder than someone else, and you may have to change something in the gain structure, and that sort of thing. Or you have different things that are taking place. Maybe someone's going to plug something in or unplug it, and you have to maybe be a little more concerned about this. Or you might even have multiple services back to back that have different people going up doing different things. And so with a digital mixer, it's easy to just kind of save presets, and it gives a snapshot of everything. And you have all of those settings ready so that you could just recall it and recall your things which are out of the norm, especially if you have like a guest singer that comes up, or a guest speaker or whatnot, and they're using maybe the microphone that the pastor normally uses, or they're using a microphone, or even a different microphone, or a different connection, and it gives you that opportunity to be able to remember that without having to remember it.
Yeah, it's true. You're totally right on that because especially when you have a venue like a church that is used for several events. I'm talking about a women's event, a conference, your morning services. If you have a youth conference, you have all those settings available for you just to the reach of a finger. And remember, that's the main reason why we changed to digital. And this is the truth because of accessibility, and how easy it is to use the equipment when you already know what you have in front of you.
And now my next question, I'm not sure if you've already answered it or not,
Okay.
but I'm going to ask it anyway. If a church is using an analog mixer, how might they benefit from a digital one?
Definitely, I can answer the question. And I will be honest, I want to confess one of my sins, one of my carnal sins in this channel is, um, let me rephrase. I'm a worship pastor, and I've been pastoring since I have memory. I started when I was 20 years old as a full-time pastor. I was always involved as an associate in worship, and I'm a musician and a singer, a songwriter, and a music producer, and I'm a pianist. So let me tell you this. This is the sin that I want to confess. When we used to get the new keyboard on the market, we want to have it just because we want to have the latest sounds, but not really because we needed it. So I'm sorry, pastors, that I worked with you before, and I made you to spend $3,000 or $3,500 in keyboards. It was because we want to have the best for the church, but it was not really justified as I see it right now against what we're talking about analog and digital. But the question is really simple, but it's really easy to answer. Number one, I already said audio quality. You will see and you will hear the audio frequencies reaching to places on an easiest way. Because of this, when your audio quality is higher, you don't need to crank up the volume too high. And that's the truth with analog, because you have a lot of noises, because it's an analog mixer. You have to crank up the volume and you have to move the EQ all the time. But with the digital, you have a steady, clean signal of audio that it will reach all your auditorium easier than ever before. That's going to be one of the main benefits. Number two, more functions to work with, and we already talked about it. You have different events, you have concerts, you have whatever you want. You can save the presettings and you can remap the mixer from the inside. And that's the truth. It's really easy. We used to have in the church that I was working with events for Christmas, for Easter, and I have the settings. So the following year, I just have to call the settings because I know how I was wiring everything, and it was really easy to follow. Weddings, conferences, concerts, whatever you want, those are functions that you can access really easy. Also, another of the benefits that I've seen is space saving, because when you buy your mixer, you have a full library of EQs, you have a full library of effects in your board that you can remap, and you can do everything from the inside. So the racks of EQs, the racks of everything, you technically don't need it anymore. That's the reason why I said before, if you are moving fully to analog, just do it. If you're moving to digital, everything digital or everything analog. There's no in between. It doesn't work like that. It's by example, and I'm not promoting any brand, but I used to have an Android phone because I hate the iPhone. But it was not until I need to make sure that my security and my information, it was carried safe, that iPhone is the best one in the market. It was not until I moved to iPhone that I saw the benefit, and I move everything from Windows and everything to Mac, and I'm right now a really happy Mac user and everything. It's the same thing. If you're moving out of analog, seriously, get rid of everything analog and move to everything digital. You will see how beneficial will be for your audio technicians, because believe it or not, it's not just about the quality, but also your audio technicians will feel in a different status, because when they get trained for these things, they can make this one as a career. And I'm talking about when you involve youth and kids in these specific areas, they will have a perspective, open world for them in technically a career in audio when they know how to use really well the system. So we're talking about space saving, and I moved to motivating the youth to get involved, but that was for free. Another benefit that you can get is digital recording. You don't have to connect a CD player or something to record external. The only thing that you need is an USB stick. Connect everything into your digital board and assign what you want, and then do it. As soon as you do it once, everything is ready to go, and you start recording your messages digitally. You just take the stick and just put it online. But also at the same time, you can connect your mixer to your live stream directly through USB 3C, and you can have everything clear and clean as possible. And also multi-track recording. A lot of people is using the digital boards to record the tracks. And I mean, if you don't know what is multi-track, is when you have digitally separated the tracks in your recording as a professional recording and move up and down each channel digitally, individually too. So those are the benefits. Let me recap: audio quality, functionality, space saving, that's huge, digital recording, multi-track, and also let me add another one for free because I'm really generous today. You will bring down the noise from your audio booth system, and that will be really relaxing. And I'm telling you by experience, when you get rid of all that old equipment and you move everything digital, that room will help them to feel comfortable and concentrate to what is happening outside and not distracted by the background noise in the sound booth. I
And
said it. Drop the mic.
and that's actually one of the things that we found is that as we upgrade an analog system to digital, the system is so quiet at times you wonder if it's even on,
Yeah.
because you just don't hear anything. And even on the recording side, or if you have sound going to an overflow area, or you're sending it to live stream, if you kind of set up your system properly to to cut out all the different noises and use the gates and whatnot, it is dead silent. And sometimes you just need to actually put an ambience mic in order to stop the silence.
Let me tell you a funny story. So when my oldest daughter, she's right now 13, when she was newborn, of course, babies doesn't come with a manual. And of course, I know that I'm alive, but how do you know that a baby is alive? So because I was excited, and I love my kids, believe me, I love my kids, but I was scared the first 3 to 6 months, like, is she alive? She's not making any noise. I mean, babies doesn't snore. So that's the only way that I know that I'm awake or sleeping. That's the only way. Oh, my dad is awake. How do you know? He's not snoring. So the only way that I can know that my daughter was alive, I have to get one of those little mirrors and put it underneath the nose just to see. You're laughing because it's true. Just to see if she was breathing or not. In the same way, you just reminded me that with the sound system, because usually this is a rule for all the sound booth in audio technicians. They have a decibel meter. I'm like, is that stuff working? I have to bring the decibel meter beside, like the mirror underneath the nose of my daughter, just to see if it's any sounds or decibels coming out of the mixer, because I don't even know if it's on or off. Because, of course, you see the lights off, but if your mixer is covered for no one to touch, you don't know if the mixer is on or off, is alive or is dead.
And yeah, so I think at this point, I'm going to ask you a third question, and I guess this is a tough question, because some people might really be wanting to know, is a digital mixer good for me, sort of thing. And so really, are digital mixers for everyone?
Okay, James. I don't know if I have to shut off my computer because the next answer that I'm gonna give, not everybody's gonna like it. But let me tell you a story. When I was in the war in Vietnam, I'm just kidding. I didn't. I was. I'm not that old. Okay, this is the reason why I'm just kidding about it because the question is like, are digital mixers for everyone? The answer is no, not for everyone. And let me tell you a couple experiences. I was in Toronto helping a worship team. I was giving a seminar, and they said we just changed the system, and I just changed the audio system in my church, of course from analog to digital. But when they said we just changed the audio system, I thought that it was the same thing because of my experience, but no, they got all new system analog again, and I'm like, and I asked the question, why not digital? And this is one of the wisest answers that I ever heard in my life. And they said, my volunteers don't have time to really learn how to deal with a digital board. So we decided to stay with the analog because they know where is everything. And I was just like, I mean, that's really kind from the perspective of a pastor. I need to think about what are the abilities or inabilities of my volunteers because they were over a certain age and they are not really good with technology. And it was a church full of elders, maybe. But it was really wise, and I was just like, "That is a story that I have to share one day, and this is the day that I can share that story." No, mixers, digital mixers are not for everyone. Simple as it is, because the learning curve is really stiff. It's really inclined, and you have to go up in. Not everything is in the right place. Let me tell you another experience that I had, and I'm not referring to anyone, but I saw a church moving. I went to this church, and they have a new digital board, the top of the line, and I was just like really impressed. But it was not until I started working to this church that I find out that this is what they did. They took a snapshot of the analog mixer and they moved everything horizontally inside the digital board. And I was just like, what? Let me explain. The horizontal point of view of the analog is just like you go, everything is just like in a line from left to right, right to left. In the digital boards, everything is by layers from top to bottom, vertical. You go to different layers, and in those layers, you have to know where to go and where to access everything. But they have a top of the line digital board, set it up as an analog mixer. Let's take a minute of silence, please, for those who has fallen into that scene. It's completely wrong. And listen, all the problems that I had in that board is because of the mentality that it was behind the setting and the mapping of that board. And I know you want to say something. I can see you, James, just like, I want to kill you.
No.
It's painful, right?
Listen, I understand that there are some churches that are going to think about the people that are using the systems, and I realize that the reason is there's not a lot of opportunities for people to learn. It's not just a matter of saying that you know they don't know how to use a digital mixer. It's that they don't know how to bridge that step, to take that step, to be able to change from analog to digital. And I mean, whenever we've been selling and installing digital mixers and replacing it from analogs, I don't know, maybe we're unique in that sense, but we actually go and we train people to show them differences between analog and digital. We try and help them bridge that gap. We try and help them understand,
I know.
you know, what you saw on this vertical strip is now separated into these areas. And we try and show also the understanding of the layers, because the concepts behind digital can actually be simpler than the
Yes.
concepts on an analog. Whereas a lot of people on an analog, what do they see? Well, they see a row of fader strips.
Yes.
And then afterwards, when you talk about the monitors, it's a bunch of little knobs, but it's
Yes.
not really easy for people to understand that. But on a digital mixer, the layer of the row of strips is your volumes that you have for the room, and you press a button, and now that same strip
Yeah.
gets reconfigured, and it's now your monitors. And
Yes.
wait, that's not all. You press another button, and it's now a second monitor or a third monitor
Yeah.
or an overflow, or it's the hallway and the kitchen and the hall downstairs and so on. So you have so many more capabilities, but to just get that concept going, it takes a little bit of time. But I've
Yes.
also found that the learning curve, once somebody is shown, once they have an opportunity to play with it, I found that they're not telling me, "Oh, it's painful. I want to go back to analog."
No, I have
They,
never heard that one before. Just
yeah, they always embrace it. And even I've had students, because I also do training, EV learning classes. I've also had students that were retired, that were part of this, and that were skeptical about changing from analog to digital. And then afterwards, we're like, yeah, I'm all in. I love it. I understand it. It's not difficult to do, and so that's been my experience as well too, from that point of view.
yeah.
But I do understand, and for a pastor to feel that way, I feel bad, because as part of this industry,
Yeah.
maybe the places that they were talking to were not offering the opportunity to help and nurture and to train the people. And I feel bad about that, because this industry should be doing that.
And I will try to not to go off track regarding this, but number one, remember that yes, again, answering the question, uh, digital boards are not for everyone because you have to be willing to transition. The learning curve is stiff and you need training required. Two things. Number one, when you're moving to a digital audio mixing board, remember the technology is moving towards helping you. And sometimes what I've seen in my experience with other senior pastors is because they do not understand it, it might not work because the old way is always the best way. And I respect that, but at the same time, I will say embrace new technology who's going to help you to minimize efforts, to utilize your time in a wiser, in a better way all the time. And that's the reason why technology is moving, because when something, let's talk about the most crucial and simple technology, fire. Why no one is trying to change the consistency of fire? Because fire has maxed out his capability to burn, to light, and to give a warmer temperature. It's like the wheel. Why don't we bring to the market and let's upgrade to squared tires or triangular tires? No, because round is what we need. If you think about, and I know sounds dumb, if you think about technology regarding mixing boards, it's the same way they are moving until they can max out their capabilities for you to utilize your maximum potential. And that's something that you have to embrace, like it or not. And another thing that I want you to keep in mind is this one. And it's something that I really, really love about James. I remember that I made a lot of mistakes working with James because I presented my budgets in the wrong way. I'm a simplistic person. If you see my watches and everything, all my clothing, I I color code. No, I just use the same colors and all the stuff because I feel comfortable. So I'm really minimalistic. In James is not. James is a really complex person to work with, and not in the wrong way, in the good way, because he's really clear with all his ideas. But sometimes, as a musician, as a minimalistic person, I need fewer information. And I said, James, can you give me the final price for this project that I have? He gives me the final, but I don't see with taxes. and I present my budget with that taxes, and he makes me be in troubles with him, and I'm sorry again, James, because of those mistakes that I make. So why am I bringing that one into the table? When you are bringing a budget to move to digital, please remember to add money for training. I've seen both extremes. When James was the one who helped me to move to digital, he said, "This is going to be for training." And I'm like, "Oh, training is not for free." He said, "No, because I will make sure, and this is something that changed my life. I will make sure that I will be available for you, even in a Sunday morning, to come and help you and train in the field your volunteers." And I was just like, I want to hug you. And that's one of the reasons why we became and we're really good friends, because of his need of helping and making sure not that the customers are happy, no, that what he's selling, we know how to use it, but we need to train the people to how to use the equipment. And I think that that's the deal breaker for a lot of people. Listen, my second experience was in the next church, in the following church, when I was not working with James, where the guy came, installed everything, and patched analog and digital together, that it was a mess. He has to patch everything and map everything. A digital board, he has to map it as a analog board, and I feel that my mouth is breathing, and my mouth is just like bleeding right now, because it was really painful, because problems all the time. And he never trained anyone, and that was just like, I have to call the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time." I mean, that's the thing that you have to think about. Again, digital boards are for everyone, not for everyone if you're not willing to move as the technology was meant to be and built. If you're not going to move to digital, fully digital, just don't do it. There's nothing wrong. You will have the same result, maybe, maybe not. Learning curve is steep, and training is not necessary, mandatory. And train people from all ages. Your current generation, that it might be over 40, over 50, but also the younger generation in between 20 and 30s, and also younger generation in between 10 and 20, because people will love what you're doing. But remember, it's not for everyone if you're not willing to move with technology.
There are a lot of resources that manufacturers have put onto the internet, videos which are maybe on Vimeo or on YouTube, usually available and linked on their websites, that train on how to use their digital mixers.
Yes.
They are good resources. Sometimes the videos are quite condensed,
Yes.
and
Like this one.
there's a lot of information in them, and you have to kind of review it several times. It goes above and beyond just having a manual to read. And there are also some online resources that you have for learning about audio and about mixing. I know we do have AV learning classes. We were hosting them in the building until we couldn't. And maybe one day we'll start hosting them in the building again, but we're going to start doing them online in terms of like a sort of a Zoom format. And also there are other resources as well too. And one of the ones that I've seen before is greatchurchsound.com. And that gives you an opportunity you can buy a book from him. The guy's name is James Wassam. He's also James, yes. And his book is basically a guide for the church volunteer. And it goes through a number of things about, audio mixing and just, serving in general within the AV ministry. And he has also a place on the website where you can pay a certain amount, and it gives you an opportunity to go in and watch videos
Yes.
as well. So that is another resource. I know, like I said, we've got our learning classes. He has his learning classes as well too. Having more than one place to go to for resources is good. And I know he also has certain videos which he also uses to show some ways of using mixers, some digital mixers. So there are resources out there. And like I know we've spoken it about before, at UYT, yeah,
Yeah, you wait.
University of YouTube. So
Yes.
yeah, so we say, put on your learning hat and yeah, just research. So if you want to know more about digital mixers for churches, you can do that. You can research there, and or if you're in the Markham area or in Ontario, and you can pick up the phone or send an email, and I'll help answer some questions for you, or you can put them in the comments below, even if you're outside of Ontario. And I can help answer some questions on that or point to some different resources. But yeah, I know that digital is the way to go. I know that. I mean, I've actually, and I told Eli this, and I've told some customers this too. I've stopped
Amen.
selling analog mixers. I have
Yes.
stopped. I can get them. If somebody really wants one, okay, yeah, I'll sell you one. But I'm going to put up a number of roadblocks and try and show you the benefits of digital versus analog, because the benefits are huge. You're an analog mixer, let's say a 16 channel sort of analog mixer might have 2 or 3 outputs on it, where you have your main output and you have maybe 1 or 2 monitor outputs. And your recording connection that you would put to record, or also potentially use for live stream, is based on your main mix. And if on your main mix you have a somebody who is singing in a microphone, and within the room you hear the person acoustically and through the microphone, so you adjust the microphone only as needed in order to blend properly. Maybe they're playing an electric guitar, which is plugged in directly, and it all comes through the PA system. Well, when when it's blended nice for the room, that's one thing. But when it's blended for live stream, the volumes are not the same as what it is in the room. It sounds different. And so with a digital mixer, you can have 2 separate mixes for this. And you can have also another separate mix if you need to for your physical recordings. So there's a number of things you can do that are maybe different from one to another. And just having a digital mixer is just that I'd say 1 up, but it's maybe 2 up, or maybe it's 10 up from an analog. There's just so much more you can do with it.
Yes.
A lot of them have built-in effects, so if you do want
Totally
to
agree.
put some kind of reverb or whatnot in there as well too, just to sweeten it up a little, you can do that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just don't sell analog anymore.
And I didn't know that until we were talking before recording this show, and that's really good. I mean, I totally agree. If you want analog, I mean, it's just like you gotta see the benefits. That's all. In if it's price wise that you wanna go to analog because it's cheaper, I will stop you there and I will say, if you don't have the money for a new mixer, stay there. You're safe. Oh, but it's not working anymore. Buy something used if you want. But if you're gonna move, you're gonna buy a new, brand new, out of the box. No, go to digital. That's the best way to do it. But you have to keep in mind those things. You need to train the people, and you need to be willing to train the people and motivate the people to move to digital, because as James says, digital is not the future, it's the present, and it will continue in that path, we like it or not. Just remember, don't patch, please. Just if you're gonna build a campaign just to do a fundraising campaign for money for this, just make sure that you have the right numbers, because if not, listen, the people like me, your associate pastors or your worship and arts pastor, and in your AV volunteers will suffer because of that bad decision of like, oh, I don't want to spend the money. It's again the same thing. I don't know if I want to go live streaming. It's a must at this point, because we're not gonna come back to normal again. The normal is not your normal or familiarity as before, and the digital is not something that you have to think about it. You just have to do it, because it's going to be almost like having a really expensive Maserati car, but you will go to Walmart just to put the tires. I'm not saying the Walmart tires are not good, but you know what I mean. You need a good quality, Move everything digital or stay everything analog, but don't patch half and half. If you move to digital, move the monitors digital in everything. You will not regret that.
Well, I, Eli, I thank you again. This has been a wonderful opportunity here at Worship Talk today. And I just want to say for you that are watching, thank you very much. We're glad you're here. We're glad that you took the time to listen to what we had to say. Hopefully it's been a blessing to you. We ask you to subscribe to the channel, to like it, to give us some comments. Let us know how it was. And also just let us know if there's any future topics you want to talk about, or even if you have questions, tell us. Even, actually, you know what? Tell us what kind of mixer you're using now. If it is analog, if it is digital, tell us some of the challenges. If you have an analog or digital, if you have challenges, tell us about that. We want to know about it. We want to know more about how we can help answer some of your questions and needs. And, you know, we just want to help you as well with resources and training. Let's say you don't know where to go for training. Well, yeah, put it in the comments. We'll help hook you up where you can get training, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. Yeah, so again, thank you very much. Eli, again, thank you. It's been a great episode today.
A pleasure, and sorry that I lost my shoulder here. Oh, my arm is flying. Ah!